Hi guys, how you doing? Merry Christmas to you all. I'd actually recorded a video on Boxing Day at St James's Park just after the 3-1 defeat to Nottingham Forest. Whether I spoke any sense or not, I'm not too sure. And then decided to go to the pub afterwards and got speaking to a load of Newcastle fans about the situation, where things are with the club, etc. And never got around to posting it. So if you're desperate to hear it, I can still post it at a later stage, but I thought maybe it's a bit late now. So here we are today, Newcastle training ground. We just heard from Eddie HOWE at his news conference ahead of the Liverpool match on Monday. And just as I talk to you right now, I can actually hear the players out training on the outdoor pitches behind me, and that is something that is music to the ears for Eddie HOWE, because what he said on Boxing Day and then again today in his press comments and in the one-to-one I've just had with him here in the indoor hall is that he's really looking forward to January, where he's got time to work with the players, because look, we all know that the December fixture list was punishing. 10 games in 30 days. Those players that were playing weren't training, so the only players that were training were the likes of Matt Ritchie and Paul Dummett and Lewis Hall and guys who weren't playing much, and the core 11 or 12 that were playing every single game were just playing, resting. And personally, I think we've probably seen that on the pitch. Like, of course, the schedule and the injuries have been a large part of the issue, but I think also the fact that they've not been able to work on things on the training ground is kind of been seen. I mean, it was something that I spoke about with a few of my mates at the Boxing Day match. Have they had chance to work on patterns of play? Have they had chance to work on set pieces? Have they had chance to work on different moves and how you play against certain opponents? Probably not, and perhaps we've seen that in the last 2-3 games against Chelsea, Luton and then Forest, and then even if you think back a couple of weeks ago to the Spurs and Everton matches as well. So look, Eddie HOWE says he does his best work in the training pitch, so let's see what January brings. But look, the question everyone wants asked, and there's two questions. Let's start with the first one, and it's the first one we asked Eddie HOWE today, and it's the first thing that I think anyone would want to know. But with the January transfer window opening on Monday, will Newcastle spend in January? Well, Eddie was asked that question a couple of times in different ways today. I had a one-to-one with him myself in here, and I asked him that question, and the one thing he kept returning to was financial fair play. He said, look, our hands are tied a little bit with financial fair play. He says there's lots of moving parts, and he said, I'm still trying to get my head around how it actually works. We're trying to navigate it. We have been for the last couple of transfer windows, and never more so than this January. So it sounds as though that is their biggest problem. He's also got to take into account that he's going to have further players coming back. It sounds like Jamal Lascelles will be okay for Liverpool on Monday, and then Harvey Barnes and a couple of the other players, Jacob Murphy, aren't too far away. So Joe Willock, sorry, that's the other one. So it sounds as though what he doesn't want to do is go out, bring in 3-4 players and then have too big a squad and have to leave players out of the squad moving forward. So it's a very difficult balancing act, but in my opinion they need a couple. I would be amazed if they don't look to the Saudi Pro League for at least 1 or 2 loans, given the fact that Newcastle were so keen to ensure that the Premier League okayed it back in November. What positions? We'll have to wait and see. But for me, I think they need to bring in another forward, someone who can play right wing or centre forward would be ideal, and also a holding midfielder. Now, Calvin Phillips is the one, of course, that everyone is talking about. And from the outside looking in, you would suggest a loan till the end of the season, until Sandro Tonali is back, would be absolutely perfect for Newcastle. Whether that's what Manchester City want, I would imagine they want to recoup some money for a player they spent a lot of money on. Whether they'll want a straight loan, we'll have to wait and see. But you would think maybe because he's been a consummate pro in his time at Manchester City, and Pep has almost apologised for not playing him and said a number of times how amazing a professional he's been, you would think that City might be understanding with that and allow a straight loan deal to happen. And also the fact that Newcastle, looking at the Premier League table right now, are not really competing with Manchester City for the top 4. They're quite far out of it. You would suggest that would make it a bit more attractive, a bit more comfortable for Manchester City to allow that. But let's wait and see. It feels like it's a deal that could happen, and it feels like it's a deal that would really help Newcastle United, and I think it would be a terrific fit. So Eddie not giving too much away in terms of what they will want to do, but he said He's not been given any assurances that there is money to spend. And he did say that, look, nothing is close as we stand here now, 3 days before the transfer window opens. So it sounds as though they're going to have to wait and see when players are coming back, and then they're going to have to make a decision for them. What I suppose you guys as fans are going to hope is that they don't wait too long, miss their targets, and things get too expensive at the end of the window. So let's wait and see on that. But in my opinion, look, they definitely need some help in there. They need a midfielder. They probably need a forward as well. And on the back of a couple of performances from Martin Dubravka late, I feel they probably need a goalkeeper. Now, I wouldn't have said that a couple of weeks ago, but I just thought he could have done better for a couple of the goals against Forest. I thought it was very easy, for Chris Wood to get past him. And he's conceded a number of goals. I know it's not just his fault, but he conceded a number of goals since he's taken over from Nick Pope, and I think it's pretty clear to see why Pope was the clear number one at the start of the season. So I wouldn't be surprised if a goalkeeper arrives. I've heard David De Gea mentioned again a couple of times this week, so I wouldn't be surprised if something comes from that. But of course De Gea would have to agree to significantly less wages to what he was earning at Manchester United. But as one colleague said to me recently, remember, he's earning nothing at the moment, so anything's better than that. So look, it's difficult to give you answers in the transfer window, but in my opinion, they definitely need new faces as much for just to give the other players a boost as well. You know what it's like for players, they get a boost or they see competition from other players arrive. You see Callum Wilson and Alexander Isak, they thrive off each other when they're both fit. When one of them are injured, the other one struggles a little bit, and I think they need each other, and I think that the rest of the players would get a real boost, and I think they would want to see a couple of players arrive. Calvin Phillips, if he comes in, for me, ideal replacement for Tonali until August once he's back from his ban. Whether Newcastle can do that, we will wait and see. The other thing I want to talk about to you was the Eddie Howe future situation, because when I was in the pub after the match on Boxing Day, every single fan wanted to know, is Eddie going to be okay? Is he going to stay? And I think that was the fear after the game, because no one has seen a situation like this. There's not been a slump where Newcastle have lost 6 out of 7 games since the takeover went through 2 years ago. The only other really down point probably was round about the cup final, and then they lost to Cambridge in the cup just a couple of months after they began. But there hasn't been a run of matches like this, and he admitted today in the interview that this is probably the toughest part that or the toughest run that they've had since he took over. So look, Eddie is safe. He is fully supported by the club, and the hierarchy knew that, or were confident that a situation like this would come around, where Newcastle would face a little bit of a slump, given the fact that they're in the Champions League. Obviously, they did not contend for the amount of injuries that Newcastle had, but that has only added more to that. And I think the owners, and by that I mean both the UK-based owners and those over in Saudi, feel that they're in it for the long run with Eddie, and he is the man to take them forward, and they're appreciative of everything he's done over the last couple of years. So they're all going to stick together. That is the message that's come out loud and clear over the last few days. So for any Newcastle fans who are a little bit worried about where the club is going to turn, or could the manager potentially be sacked, that is not the case. And you know, I think it's almost difficult for them to even talk to us about that or relay those messages, because it's nothing that they've even thought about. But obviously I think the owners are aware of some of the speculation, some of the things that are being said. So it sounds to me like you guys as fans still, to a man, to a supporter, want Eddie Howe as your manager, and that will be the case. As I say, they are in this together. So obviously things can change. Huge games coming up in January, and you've got to remember the PIF own 80% of the football club. They have yet to make a big decision yet, so we do not know how they'll act in certain situations. So let's wait and see how it goes. But as it stands here right now, Eddie's in a strong position. You'd have to say it would help him a lot if Newcastle beat Sunderland in 10 days' time. That would certainly go a long way to appeasing any dissenters, or keeping everyone on side. And obviously keep Newcastle in the cup competition. But I think there's an acceptance that the games coming up against Liverpool, Man City and Aston Villa are very tough, and you know, Newcastle will do well to come out with that with points. So let's see how they deal with it, having had the training sessions under the belt, with the players coming back. there's definitely more options now, and as each game passes, the players are going to get fitter, aren't they? Because Sven Botman played 70 minutes the other night. He'll now be able to play a full 90. We see Joe Linton coming off the bench, probably ready to start on Monday. So they are getting back to the Newcastle of old, and not just having to play the same 11 players again and again. So that was it from the news conference this morning. Not a great deal in terms of news lines, but I think for Eddie, just happy to put 2023 to bed and look forward to next year, and what a start to the new year it would be if Newcastle were able to get anything at Anfield. So all looking forward to that one. So anyway, that's it, guys. If you want to comment on that, or leave any of your thoughts on the Eddie Howe situation or the transfer window, do so below. I'll read them and I'll try and get back to you. Cheers now. Speak to you in the next one.